Darius Garland and God fuck. Redo that. Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen set the tone for the Cleveland Cavaliers win on Friday night. We'll explain why and why it matters on the Saturday edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I am Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. Happy Saturday. Cavs win in overtime against the Karl Anthony Townsless Minnesota Timberwolves. Cleveland again without Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, Evan Mobley, Ty Jerome, I guess, too, if you want to count him. Evan, I think the big thing from this win for Cleveland, an overtime win, is that everything just ran through Darius Garland. Everything just ran through Jarrett Allen. This was a game where everything, I think, centered on what they could do for this team. It was kind of reminiscent of that first All-Star campaign for both of them, the only All-Star campaign for both of them, in some ways, of the structure of just how this team worked. 34-8 for Garland and 33-18 for Allen. Not their most efficient nights, which we'll get into, but I thought everything really centered on what those two guys could do to get this team a win.
Yeah, I mean, those two were the backbone of this win for the Cavs. I think more than anything, Jarrett Allen just really stood out to me because of the constant pressure he applied at the rim. I mean, cripe, he had 21 free throw attempts. He joked in the postgame he's never had two games in his career where he had 21 free throw attempts, and I think that he means in general. So this is just a game where he constantly brought the force, constantly dropped the hammer, as one Austin Carr would say, throw it down rather. But more so the fact that Allen was able to do this. He's just been consistent in being a guy that steps up for the Cavs, and he really did take advantage of the fact that, like, when Rudy Gobert wasn't on the floor, he was really able, and so were the Cavs in general, really able to attack the rim a lot more and kind of build a rhythm in the paint against Minnesota, just because Nasri just isn't the rim protector that Rudy Gobert is. And I mean, that's obvious. Rudy Gobert is one of the best rim protectors of all time. But I mean, he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year again, somehow. He's going to do it again. And hey, man, if you know, he did get a tech for the Johnny Manziel tribute that he did to the refs. It was fitting that it was in Cleveland that he got to do that, you know, once in a lifetime kind of thing. But either way, Jarrett Allen was awesome, and so was Darius Garland. I think post game he did share that he's still not 100% weight wise or conditioning wise, and he's still trying to work his way back to that point. And I think you can certainly tell this is something we talked about, like the weight isn't there fully, so it's harder for him to maybe draw contact when he's attacking the basket, or, you know, just kind of bang down low when he's in a forest of trees when he's attacking the basket, and he's going to be settling for 3-pointers or long twos that just aren't super efficient. But this is a game where he was certainly a lot better. I mean, you would care to not have as many turnovers if you're Garland, ideally, but he was the type of aggressive where you're able to kind of swallow that pill a little bit more, just because he had 34 points. He had multiple assists. He was very much engaged offensively with this Cavs team. And every time he was out there, he seemed to have a sense of purpose when he was attacking the basket or moving the basketball.
Yeah, I think Garland's kind of the more interesting one. Jarrett Allen, like, I can kind of explain what happened here with him and why he wasn't efficient. It's because of Rudy Gobert. He also just missed like a couple shots that he probably think he just makes at a certain point, right? Like he missed a dunk, and it was just like, okay, like, you're going to have one of those nights, and that's going to add up to some misses for you. Makes up for it with the aggression, getting to the free throw line. Garland is the one that I think matters more and is interesting. And it's even the structure of what his shot kind of breakdown looks like. He's 11 to 16 on twos, which is such a big flip for him based on what we've seen from him of late. Not an A-plus game for him. I thought him trying to score on Nas route of regulation and really settling for a three, whether that was him or whether that was a JB Bickerstaff decision to attack Nas in that way, I thought was bizarre and a mistake. But a good game in terms of his aggression, what he looked like, the kind of shots he was making at times. Like, that's more of the Darius Garland that they're going to need when Mitchell is back and this team is trying to maximize whatever this season is going to end up being. In like 11 to 16 on twos while still taking 10 threes and really having to take the burden of the offense and carry it. He was the leading shot taker in this team, not counting free throws, by 7 shots. That's kind of the Garland I think we've been waiting for since Mitchell's been out, and it's just been him. And again, it wasn't perfect, but it's as aggressive and as controlled inside the arc as we've seen him. And that to me feels like a positive sign, even if he's not all the way back yet.
Yeah, I think any trend in the right direction is a good thing with Darius Garland right now, obviously. But this is, like you said, an encouraging step. There were still some miscues, maybe some like bumpiness to it at times, and you can tell all throughout this process that he hasn't been 100%. But yeah, this is the kind of game where he led the team in shot attempts, and you need him to do that because there is no Donovan Mitchell. And Karis LeVert was pretty solid off the bench for the Cavs too in this matchup, but like, there's only so much LeVert can give you that only Garland or Mitchell could do otherwise, just because like there's a limit to what LeVert can give the Cavs. But yeah, this is the kind of game where you're like, okay, we're going to just put the offense squarely on your shoulders. We're going to throw Isaac Okoro at Anthony Edwards and make his life just a nightmare every single time he's on offense and just slow him down completely. And Darius, go ahead, pick him apart. Just pick and choose your shots, pick and choose where you want to attack. The Nas Reed one is a good shot. It was an interesting attempt. But it was a solid performance for the Cavs from two of their biggest pillars. And like you said, it did have some sameness to that year. They were both all-stars where they're just like, yeah, they're bringing the Thunder wire to wire whenever they're on the floor for Cleveland.
Last thing on those two guys, I think, Evan, is just that what did you make of how the offense, when it got late and into overtime, really was just those two guys plus a little bit of Karis LeVert like sprinkled in, touching the ball, running the offense, like those were the two things. What do you think of that ending being where like just how the offense worked late in this game?
I think it was smart because you're playing unlimited possessions in overtime. You want to slow down the offense and maximize your opportunities whenever you can. The game was certainly much more in the bag, I'd say, with like a minute and a half, 2 minutes left in overtime for Cleveland, but it was still dicey. But I think it's just the right method of attack. And if you want to win the game, you put it on the shoulders of the guys who brought you there offensively, which was Garland, it was Allen, and then, like I said, LeVert, who did play pretty well, like especially just like, stealing a lot of inadvertent Anthony Edwards passes. But we'll maybe talk about that later when it comes to the defense on Edwards. But not surprised. I think it's just the right call. No matter what you do, you don't really want to kill a flow in something that's kind of working. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think I would have maybe liked one or two here and there, just like spray out to an Okoro in the corner, to Niang, who had a really nice game. But I understand the structure and the carefulness in a lot of ways. All right, after this, let's get into Isaac Okoro, his value, how that was showcased here, and also some rotation thoughts, and why this was a game where George Niang definitely should have just played ahead of Dean Wade. We'll talk about that after this. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us in this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. A name he has on his list you Cavs fans would have seen last night is Kyle Anderson. 10 points, 5 assists, 3 boards for Anderson last night. And he's on this list because Karl-Anthony Towns has a uncertain future, Josh writes. Anderson will see a larger role and will likely start. That's true. Just beware that the Wolves only played 2 games this week. So keep an eye out for Anderson. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, and exclusions apply. Back here on the Locked On Cavs podcast, Chris Manning and Evan Dammarell here with you on Saturday to cover Cavs Wolves. Evan, Isaac Okoro, I think is
time.
Yeah, Isaac. It's good. It's good. It's like a 6.5 out of 10. It's good. It was good. Obvious, but sometimes you got to hit the singles. Isaac Okoro, Evan, to me, doesn't have the most robust offensive game here. 9 points, only took 1 3. Doesn't really touch the ball, and Mike Conley's defending him and being hidden. But if people want to just to watch maybe one of the most impressive things any Cavalier did in this game, go watch how he defended Anthony Edwards at the end of regulation. Just go watch it, because he absolutely shut Ant's water off in a way that took this game in overtime. And I think if you're looking at person number one of why Anthony Edwards in the fourth quarter and in overtime doesn't really do anything. He was 0 of 6 from the field in the fourth, and he was 0 of 2 in 5 minutes of overtime. 0 of 8 over the last 17 minutes of this game. Can't do math. That's why I went to OU. That is, me. I know myself. I went to journalism school and minored in English for a reason. Not good at math. Don't like math. The fact that they ended up in the situation where Okoro does that and kind of just, I thought was the main reason Anthony Edwards is taken out of this game, I think just speaks to the value this guy has and why he's going to matter when they're going to need playoff minutes to guard someone important in the playoffs.
So, for context, and how well Isaac Okoro defended Anthony Edwards, individually, Okoro held Edwards to 2 of 10 shooting on, that's 20%, 0 of 2 from 3-point range, 2 points overall. Okoro had a block on Edwards. Edwards is able to get an assist. He was able to generate not much at all against Okoro, and GB Bickerstaff kind of made it clear pregame that although the Wolves were coming off overtime and Edwards, gave Minnesota everything he had to help them beat the Pacers. He even hit his head on the backboard blocking a shot. Okoro, he's just listen, yeah, Anthony Edwards is a superstar, but the Cavs kind of have a superstar perimeter killer in Isaac Okoro, who has drawn the assignment of whether it's James Harden, Damian Lillard, Trae Young, Jalen Brunson, Anthony Edwards, Jaylen Brown, you name it. He spends the most of, if not his entire night, matching the best perimeter players minute for minute and does a very good job of defending them. And this is just the latest example of that. And like you said, just the collective defense spearheaded by Okoro in the second half and in overtime, I think it's just, it was a collective effort for Cleveland and just all throughout it, wire to wire, and it's really hard to do that. 6 points in the second half from Anthony Edwards, who has the ability to get hot at any time, even if he's on the second game of a back-to-back, 0 points in overtime. Edwards killed the Wolves offensively because he took so many shots, and it was so much work for him to get those 19 or so points that he scored. And it's just because that was part of the Cavs game plan. They're going to grind your best opposing perimeter player into dust and then lock in defensively elsewhere. And I think Allen did a pretty solid job defending the paint comparatively to Gobert at times. I mean, it's not the sameness, but the Cavs had a very sound defensive strategy against Minnesota, and I think it was easier, of course, without Karl-Anthony Towns out there, but just, cutting the head off the snake with Edwards is just a smart strategy, and it makes it much easier to handle everything else this team in the Timberwolves could have thrown at you.
What did you make of the rotation for Cleveland in this game? Dean Wade ends up the vis-a-vis George Niang conversation that we've had a lot. I think we'll continue to have. He played 32 minutes. Niang ends up playing, I think 35, so close, but one was certainly more productive. LeVert plays 34. Sam Merrill gets 18. Had another off night from 3, but variance, I guess, is what I would say to that. And you get cameos from Damian Jones and Craig Porter Jr. What did you make of the rotation Cleveland went with in this game?
Well, one surprise they went with the George Niang, Dean Wade 3-4 lineup again, but it was effective in this matchup. So I guess you don't knock on something if it works in some matchups, but the way you laid out those minutes are not surprising. I think Damian Jones get his sprinkling of minutes all throughout the game just to give Jarrett Allen a breather, something we talked about and will probably change when Tristan Thompson does return to the court, or, hopefully Evan Mobley gets back to the court sooner rather than later, because he has insane healing factors, and Mobley does. But otherwise, I'm not too surprised. Like, heavy minutes, of course, for Garland and Allen in this one. You lean on Okoro quite a bit too, just to match Ant minute for minute. And then you sprinkle everything in between. And like George Niang and Dean Wade, I think the one of those two will always get more minutes than the other if the other one has it going. And Niang was the guy who definitely had it going. He was hitting it from the perimeter, and it was a little surprising because he had that scary fall in the second half, and like kind of like, oh, is he able to keep playing? And then he rips a 3-pointer on the other end on just like a very weird attempt from the corner. But that's what you brought in George Niang for. Like, the defensive deficiencies are always going to be there, but he gives you some rebounding. It's mostly the fact that he's a howitzer from 3-point range, and he's kind of just not what Wade is in that regard. But it's still JV Bickerstaff being pretty creative. Like, you saw Wade playing the 5 in some lineups in this game with Niang at the 4, or like, just trying to like cobble things together because there is no Evan Mobley. But yeah, it makes sense. But Niang, for me at least, just because like he's just such a ready and willing 3-point shooter, like that's always just going to be the justification in my eyes on why he leapfrogs Wade in the rotation most nights. And this is like, the conversation for your 8th or 9th man come playoff time too, mind you. So it's not like this is the deciding factor, but if you want to get some maximal opportunities out of that spot, if a guy is shooting threes and is a bigger player shooting threes, you take that every day of the week.
Yeah, I think Dean Wade, just for me, like, I think what we learned this week is that despite the Celtics game being something you would hope could be a catalyst for him, is that he played 33 minutes, took 2 shots, and was a minus 25. Like, in single game plus minus is, but it's like, how, like, him taking 2 shots. And look, maybe I need to watch it back, but him just taking 2 shots is just like, what are we doing? Damian Jones took 2 shots in a fraction of the minutes. Like, to only take 2 shots, you kind of have to be trying to not shoot. He remains just like as much as there is a clear value to him, and I think he's clearly a more well-rounded player than Niang. I think we know that. That's the argument for him in the rotation. Mm-hmm. He just can't take 2 shots. That's why Niang plays more than him all the time. That's why Niang's willing to fail. Dean Wade is, since the Celtics game when he really succeeded, is often, I think, not willing to fail and make mistakes. And that I think is clearly holding him back.
Yeah, and like you said with Niang, I think he knows it's a make or miss league, and he knows what he provides is pretty premium commodity. And like, once he sees the ball going in, he was 4-7 from 3-point range in this game, 6-10 from the floor overall. I mean, the 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal and 2 blocks, surprisingly, they're something you gladly take from your starting small forward. But yeah, the Wade stuff, when you really put it like that, it does get harder to say, like, dude, what the heck is going on here? Just because he has a career night where he saves the Cavs bacon against the Celtics and just carries them to victory, more or less, and gets the nickname Venom from Shaq, which is
sure
pretty tight. And then, his teammates are calling him Blizzard now. So there's multiple going around. I kind of like Dean Wolf too, but Either way, yeah, Dean Wade has just kind of always been this bit of like an enigma where like there's games where he really locks in offensively, still gives you like the really good to passable defense. He gives you the rebounding, the size, the versatility, but like the shooting is like his biggest premium commodity. And you just wish he wasn't so tentative at times with the ball in his hands. And yeah, like maybe that's something I need to rewatch and just like really hone in on the Dean Wade minutes. But like he was unnotable, like he just wasn't really notable out there whenever he was playing, and he played almost 33 minutes in this game.
Yeah, he just, I think oftentimes is not looking to shoot when there's just shots staring him in the face. All right, after this, we've got some injury updates. It's Donovan Mitchell. Ever heard of him? And Max Strus, and what that could mean for the Cavs down the stretch over the last month of the season with the injuries they're dealing with. That's up after this. Today's episode is brought to you by today's title sponsor, LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you hire for your small business. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They have a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to the professionals you can't find anywhere. LinkedIn does that all the time while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even have just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedInNBA. That is linkedin.com/LockedInNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, injury updates. Start with Donovan Mitchell. JB Bickerstaff quote, "He's doing well. He's progressed. He's doing stuff on the floor. It just becomes about how he handles the next workout and then the next workout and then continues to ramp up for there." Again, said that, this isn't new, Evan, really. Him doing stuff on the floor is progression in some way, because that you kind of had, there's like a whole stage of get back to the court from MMA injuries, but it still feels like we're in a gray area with him. Like if you told me he played on Monday, at this point I would be surprised. But do I feel like I can tell you if he's going to play next Wednesday against the Pelicans? I don't know. Like you could convince me of a lot of things with Mitchell, and I think that's just because we still feel very much in the gray area with when he's going to be back.
Yeah, I mean, that's always going to be the case with the Cavs or any team. Like, you never want to rush a player back. You never want to publicly say, like, oh, we expect him back at this point. But it is encouraging to hear that after getting the PRP injections, they are doing their job at least, and he's able to be on the floor and get some on-court work in. Bickerstaff didn't really specify, like, the intensity of it. I would assume it's very light individual stuff at this point, but it all really does ultimately hinge on his evaluation. Today, when we're recording this, Bickerstaff said Mitchell's getting his knee looked at today by Cleveland's training staff. I'd assume the doctors at the Cleveland Clinic Sports Training Center that administered the shots as well take an evaluation too. And then the Cavs will just kind of have some perspective on what the next steps are for him. But, you know, it seemed optimistic, at least on Bickerstaff's part, that Mitchell could be back maybe sooner than we expected. But also, just the tricky thing is like if you got PRP injections in your knee, like it had to be pretty painful to just want to keep you off the court and to like just how the recovery was going. So you want to be as cautious and mindful as possible so this just doesn't become a recurring issue. And I think that's ultimately the goal, because you want Donovan Mitchell ship-shape and upright for the playoffs, not for just the remainder of the regular season. Because if he's not feeling himself in the playoffs, like it really craters your chances in the first, maybe second round if you're able to squeak out of the first round, even if he's not at 100%. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. And then also it's just the same Bickerstaff approach. Like he probably has to hit multiple benchmarks with the coaching staff or the medical staff just in practice or through certain scenarios and things like that to get clearance to play. And then even then, would not even be surprised if he's on a mid restriction just to finish the season as they ramp him back up, just so, they make sure like that knee doesn't become like a career threatening thing for him, or even just affects his overall play for the remainder of the season and postseason.
Yeah, just play 10 guys the rest of the way. Like generally it might just be like a good thing for them to do just to like maintain this.
Bickerstaff did talk about pregame. He's like, it is nice having extra depth because when we are missing so many guys, we don't feel like we're scrambling as much. Just lean on that for the rest of the year. Just burns. Yeah. Let Damian Jones earn them checks.
Well, that's the one where I'm like, I would just, with Tristan Thompson's suspension is about to be up, I would just play Tristan Thompson. Like I don't need to see Damian. Can't be worse than Damian Jones, who has just not been good at any time he's played. Honest, we didn't get to this in segment 2, but I'm kind of just into like it's 2 games, so like I take that for what you will. And maybe you got to play Jones on Monday just if Allen gets in foul trouble or you're worried about Nurkic or something. But 5 out to me seems like a preferable way to go than playing Damian Jones. As far as Max Strus. Wear and tear thing, Bickerstaff said it's just a matter of time when the strain comes down. I can't tell you the grade of seriousness, and said obviously for Maddox not to play, he's in serious pain and discomfort. It's just a matter of time of giving it time to rest. Another wait and see. I think we're just gonna Evan one day find out via like a Woj tweet or something that he's probable for a game and is going to come back. But another guy that I think is really important for this team in the playoffs, maybe just like when he comes back, let's lower the minutes a little bit and maintain him for the stretch run.
Yeah, so I will preface, Bickerstaff seemed more optimistic about Mitchell being back, at least in terms of clarity compared to Max Strus. Like Strus, it was a wear and tear thing, as you said. And then I did a little bit of diving into it. Didn't even realize that he's like, I don't want to say eclipsing, but really beating out Jarrett Allen for the most minutes played on the Cavs this season. And before these 3 games he had missed, he had played, the last time he had missed action was November of 2022, when he was still with the Heat. So like he's played for a while now. He's played heavy minutes for the Heat all the way up to that finals run. He's played heavy minutes clearly for the Cavs. I think you can afford to rest him right now. But like you said, you don't want this to be a recurring thing when he does eventually come back to the floor. So limit his minutes and just make sure that he just isn't like, gonna re-aggravate things, because he is really vital to what you do, even when his shot isn't falling. Like Max Strus is hyper engaged on the end of the floor, and you want him feeling 100% and comfortable so he can continue to give you that juice that really has made him like a vital piece for the Cavs, just rotation wise.
Yeah, they need him. They don't need him as much as Mitchell, but they need him in a real way. It's going to be mandatory to keep everyone healthy as possible. But those 2 guys, I think, if they're dealing with these injuries, and look, Okoro's dealing with stuff too, and you have LeVert's dealing with stuff. Like everyone is a little bit banged up right now. That's just kind of the nature of this season. But I think more than anything else right now, you kind of gotta maintain. And I'm curious to see. I think this will be one of the more interesting things of just down the stretch run. How do the Cavs, or how the Cavs do not elect to just maintain some of the things with Cleveland down the stretch run here. But we're gonna end there. I'm Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarell. We'll be back on Monday after Cavs Nets. Another busy week of Cavs basketball ahead, with games next week against the Nets, who are bad, the Suns, who are good, the Pelicans, who are good, and then they get the Rockets on Saturday. So all that coming up next week here on Locked On Cavs. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell, who I hope go gets a cup of coffee after this. We'll talk to you soon.